Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Barbara Ward. I'm a public affairs specialist with AAA Northeast, and today we will be talking about 10 deadly teen driver mistakes. I have a group of parents with me today whose teens are currently enrolled in their high school driver ed program, and I also have Karen Perrone on the call. She runs the program in these districts and teaches the theory portion of the course. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. I can't think of anything more important than keeping our teens safe on the road. So I commend you for taking the time to come on the call and to share your experiences and learn about ways that we can keep our teens safe. Sorry about that. Okay, so we know that driving is dangerous, right? Car crashes are the leading cause of death for teens, right? And the latest data that we have from 2019, about 2,000 teens in the US aged 16 to 19 were killed in motor vehicle crashes. So that's 5 teens per day. And obviously that's, one is too many, but that's an issue. For every mile that they drive, teens are 3 times more likely than adults to be involved in a deadly crash. And their highest level of risk is within the first 12 months of unsupervised driving, right? Parents play the biggest role in keeping their teens safe behind the wheel. Risky driving, traffic violations, and crashes are lower among teens whose parents set limits and rules on their driving habits. Right, setting limits and rules certainly important all year long, but especially important during the summer months when teen driver deaths increase significantly. All right, the 100 days between Memorial Day and Labor Day are the deadliest for teens because they have more free time, less adult supervision, and more opportunities to drive at night. Right. A parent's personal experience and encouragement can help their teens avoid these 10 mistakes. So we're going to go through the 10 mistakes and hopefully give you some tips and ideas on how to work together with your teen to avoid these mistakes. And the first one is risk taking. All right. Driving is new to teens. They're going to take risks. They're going to make mistakes and sometimes use poor judgment. All right, and this is all due to inexperience. All right, they are not able sometimes to recognize hazards and they underestimate dangerous situations. All right, sometimes they think they're invincible. They think it's not going to happen to them. All right, and it can happen to them. And we don't want them to do something they'll regret for the rest of their lives. All right, car crashes impact everyone: drivers, passengers, pedestrians, and families. So parental involvement and restrictions significantly reduce risky behavior during a driver's first 12 months behind the wheel. So just by being here today, again, I commend you, the parents, because it's showing that you take this seriously and you want to do what you can, be involved in the learning to drive process and keep your teens safe on the road. So that's fantastic. All right, the second mistake is texting and talking, which I don't think comes as much of a surprise. Texting increases crash risk by 23 times. Right? Talking on a phone can double reaction time. And some even say it's equivalent to having a 0.08 BAC. All right, so this is all an issue, especially with teens. We also found that there were studies that was done recently that found mental distractions can actually last up to 27 seconds after texting or after dialing the phone, or even after, setting your GPS system. So parents have to be a good role model. They have to keep their hands on the wheel and their eyes on the road, understand that teens are watching you, all right? They've been driving with you since they're young. They see what you do, and they're probably going to mimic your driving behavior. So not only holding the phone and talking, while that's against the law in New York, it's the conversation that is the distraction. And that's something, that I think is really important to understand. So even if you're talking with a hands-free system, it's the conversation that is the distraction. So we want to, be good role models. All right, the third is seatbelts. All right, being unbuckled and being hurt or killed can be reduced by almost half by wearing seatbelts. All right, seatbelts save lives. It's as simple as that. But seatbelt use is lowest among teen drivers. So again, we want to make sure that you're being a good role model, that you're teaching by example. They're going to learn by watching what you do. So if you get in the car and you buckle yourself up, then chances are your teen is going to do the same, right? Not only is it the law, okay, it's probably the easiest and most effective way to stay safe if you're involved in a crash. It's going to keep you alive. That's the hope. We sometimes see stories on the news or newspaper articles, and you read that the passenger was thrown from the vehicle. Well, the passenger would not have been thrown from the vehicle if they were belted in. So it's important, again, make sure your teens are buckling up and make sure their passengers are buckling up. Everyone in the car, again, it's the law now. All passengers in the car have to have their safety belt on. So we want to make sure that that happens. All right, but like I said, the teen usage, it's low for some reason. All right, and it could be part of inexperience. It could be part of they're only taking a short trip, so they don't feel they need it. It could be that they are sitting in the back seat and they don't feel they need to be buckled in. But if a crash happens, right, and your backseat passenger is not buckled in, if the crash itself doesn't injure or kill the front seat occupants, the bodies of the people in the back will. So really important. And again, it's the law. So make sure that they know that. All right, next one is loud music. Definitely loud music can cause you to lose focus on the driving environment. We need to be able to hear, right? We use all our senses when we drive. Hearing's important. If there's an emergency vehicle coming up from behind, that's something you need to hear so you can get out of their way and let them come through, right? Music can also be a distraction. Even taking your eyes off the road for 2 seconds doubles your chance of a crash, right? They say the average text to read or send takes about 5 seconds on average, right? And driving at 55 miles an hour, right, that 5 seconds, you can cover the length of a football field. And you may have heard this before, but that's like driving blind because you're looking at the phone for that long. So again, while you're teaching your teen to drive, it might be a good idea to keep the music off, turn the radio off, focus on the road, focus on the instruction. And, maybe as they gain more experience, then they can start listening, but you want to keep it low so you can hear other things going on. All right, remind them driving requires their full attention. All right, next mistake is speed. 1/3 of teen fatalities involve speeding. And I think it's important to let them know and to kind of keep reminding them they have less chance of a crash by driving the speed limit. They have less chance of being injured or killed in a crash by driving the speed limit. Okay. Road conditions, they have to understand they need to adapt to road conditions. So they have to adjust their speed if the road is wet, if there's snow, if there's ice, right? And maybe they don't understand, that the car is not going to perform on wet pavement or icy pavement the same as it would on dry pavement. So they need to adjust their speed to the road conditions. That's really important. All right, so get involved. Teens who are monitored by their parents closely actually tend to speed less. So that's a good thing to know. All right, next one, really important. We call them Rowdy Riders. all right, but passengers in the car. And, you know, looking at this slide, I think it's obvious to say the more teen passengers that you have in the car, the risk goes up with each teen passenger. So just by having one other teen passenger, that crash risk doubles, all right? And even though after your teens get their full license from the state, all right, there may not be passenger restrictions, but it's okay if you establish your own rules. We actually encourage that. Establish your own rules. The state, you know, is issuing them a license, but you make the rules. So sit down with them, talk about it, all right? Set the rules, limit the number of passengers that they carry in the car and enforce it, right? Enforce it. Next mistake is impaired driving, all right? Alcohol or drugs. And believe it or not, 36% of teen crashes involve alcohol. All right, now we know alcohol is illegal, right? Under 21, there's zero tolerance for teens, all right? But some of them get their hands on it anyway. So we need to understand that, you know, their inexperience plus impaired performance, certainly a deadly combination. And it's not just alcohol, all right? It could be illegal drugs, prescription drugs, even over-the-counter drugs can impair performance. So that's something that you and them need to be aware of. Even if they take over-the-counter allergy medicine, all right, that can cause impairment because it's making them really drowsy. So I think it's important to talk to your teen about the dangers of impaired driving, remind them it's illegal to drink or use recreational marijuana is a big thing now because that was recently legalized. Remind them it's illegal under the age of 21. All right, so it's illegal, but it's also deadly to drive impaired. Number 8 is driving at night. All right, late night driving, very dangerous for teens. The crash rate is actually 2 times higher between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. All right, so you want to monitor, you know, when are they out on the road? When are they, you know, where are they going? A lot of times they have no destination. They just want to get in the car and drive with their friends, and they're just driving around with no destination, and that is dangerous. All right. So establish rules and consequences. Set curfews. All right. Again, even if they have their full license, you are the parent. You can set curfews, and even after they have that license, set them. You have to be home by 10 o'clock. You don't want them riding around at midnight or 1 in the morning, because I always like to say, you know, nothing really good happens at that time. Nothing really good happens at that time. So be vigilant of that, all right? And set your own curfews and enforce them. Number 9 is peer pressure, which again, kids are prone to peer pressure. So, you know, we want them to make good choices. Whether they're the driver or the passenger, right? Let your teen know it's okay for them to speak up. If they don't feel comfortable with a certain situation, you know, it's okay that they call you. Let them know you're available. You know, if they need a ride home, sometimes families set up a code word, right? Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but they'll set a code word and they'll tell their teen, if you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable, or you're scared, or you're not sure what to do, text me the code word and I'll call you and we'll figure something out. I'll come and get you. But it's a way to get them out of a situation that they may not be comfortable with. All right, they need to understand, you know, what's right for someone else may not be the right decision for them. All right, so have a plan. And then the last one is overconfidence, which can certainly lead to crashes when new drivers encounter unfamiliar or unexpected situations. So again, parents have to play an active role in your teens' learning to drive process. And it's important, you know, even after they get their full license, to stay involved and monitor their driving on a regular basis, right? You want to see what they're doing. You don't want them to turn 17, get their license, and you don't see how they're driving maybe till 6 months later. and all of a sudden you realize they're doing some things that they shouldn't be doing. You want to stop that right away, right? And the longer that they do it, they're going to fall into these habits, and it's going to be an issue to turn it around, right? So stay involved and monitor what they're doing. Any opportunity that you have to get in the car with them and have them drive, do it. You're going to a family party and you're all going as a family, let the teen drive, see what they're doing, observe. Are they following the rules of the road? Are they driving the speed limit, or are they going a little too fast? Are they coming to complete stops at stop signs? Make sure that they're doing things the right way. Really important. You need to evaluate their readiness. So practicing. You're starting now, I'm assuming. This was quite a challenging year, right, to say the least. So the parents now are responsible for teaching your teen how to drive. You're not only supervising, but you're actually in the cars teaching them. So, you know, that's a big weight. It can be a little bit overwhelming, especially if you haven't done it before. You know, so again, I'll say it 3 times because it's on the screen. Practice, practice, practice. You have to have them gain experience. It's the only way they're going to learn. The only way they're going to get better is if they practice. All right, know the graduated driver licensing laws and what restrictions are in place for a permit and for a junior license. All right, be familiar with that. Certainly lead by example. The strongest way to deliver a message is to lead by example. So don't forget, they see what you're doing, they see your driving habits, and chances are they're going to do what you do. So if you're a parent who very often talks on the phone in the car, okay, they're probably going to do the same thing. Even if you're using hands-free, again, it's the conversation that's the distraction. So even if you're speaking through a Bluetooth and you're holding your hands on the wheel, all right, and you're following the law, all right, remember what I said about the mental distractions. All right, AAA did a study and they found that distraction lasts for 27 seconds, all right, after the conversation, after dialing the phone, after sending the text, after using your GPS, okay, after adjusting the radio. All right, so important that keep that in mind. They are watching you, they're observing you. Other responsibilities, you know, I think it's important, and I'm hoping that most families will sit down, have a family discussion, talk about responsibilities, especially if they're going to be driving their own car. Who's responsible for that car? Who's responsible for keeping the car up as far as mechanics, oil changes? You know, if something goes wrong, who brings it into the mechanic? Who pays for gas? Right? These are things that they should know before they start driving. So, and these are, you know, these are family rules. So whatever fits your family. But the point is to keep the lines of communication open. Okay. Let them know what your expectations are, set the rules, enforce them, have consequences if they break them. Right. We definitely suggest having a parent-teen driving agreement because at least now these rules and regulations, they're in writing. All right. So they know what you expect from them. All right. And they know what might happen if you break, you know, you break the rules. All right. Also, something we think is important, not only to have a parent-teen driving agreement, but also to have a parent-parent driving agreement. So if your teen has a group or a circle of friends, talk to the other parents, because remember, you may restrict passengers in your teen's car, but you know, Mrs. Smith may not. So let Mrs. Smith know that it's nothing against their son or daughter, and they may be a wonderful driver and they may be responsible, but I don't want my teen in the car with another teen as a passenger, because we know just by having that one passenger doubles the crash risk. All right. So I think that that's a good idea as well. So you all have my email address, but this is it. And this is my telephone number. If you need to contact me, you can certainly do that. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. This is a great teen website we have, teendriving.aaa.com. And it's actually state specific. So if you log on from home, it's going to connect you to the state that you reside, and you can find out lots of information as far as risks, understanding those risks. That has insurance information, has GDL information, has a lot of tips for parents to use to help be a good supervised driver. And it will help you, guide you during this learning to drive process. So I think in conclusion, I'm hoping, why don't we see if, does anyone have comments, questions? Do you want to share an experience? I know, like I said, this year was a little crazy, and the weight of driving or learning to drive has now shifted to the parent. How are you feeling? What are you doing? Is it going well? Are you having some issues? Okay, so Dave, you can take yourself off mute and let us know.
Yeah, so as far as my experience goes with Tyler, I never assume that he knows anything. He's a straight A student. He's smart as could be, but he's also dumb as a box of rocks. I make no assumptions anymore. One day he was driving with his cousin. His cousin's a little bit older. The two of them ran out of gas on the freeway, pulled over, got into the shoulder, literally pulled over, I would say 30 feet over the top of a hill, parked there, left their headlights on for a couple hours as they were waiting for someone to come and get them gas. I was the one who got them gas. And I just, at that point I realized that I should probably have a talk with them and let them know that, hey, if you get into a rotten situation, there are things you can do to make the situation better. Turning off your headlights when you pull over and you have no gas, that'll assure that you can get started back up. But the thing that really bothered me was that they literally pulled over at the top of a hill. As you know, approaching a hill on a highway, someone coming over that hill, if they pull over, they can slam right into the back of them.
Sure.
So I kind of was really trying to impress upon them, hey, if you're in trouble like that, try to glide down the hill a little bit and then pull off the road so you don't get hit in the rear. Have your hazard lights on, which they didn't do that either. So when it came to an emergency, they really were clueless. They were just sitting there clueless. So I just think that you can never assume that, even though your kids may be smart,
right.
Dumb.
They're totally inexperienced.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a perfect example. So, I'm glad that you had the opportunity to see and talk to him and, straighten it out. Give him the advice that you gave him in case it should happen again. At least now he knows. Hopefully he'll remember what you told him.
Oh, they will.
Okay. So definitely, again, keeping those lines of communications open, really important. And
the other part was teach your kid, how to operate their car. The other thing was they inadvertently put the emergency brakes now are electronic. So somehow he put the emergency brake on as he was trying to pull away. The car wasn't moving. They literally had no idea how to operate the equipment in the car.
Okay.
They did not know They did not know the emergency brake was on, nor did they know how to turn it off. So make sure that they know how to operate whatever it is they're driving.
Okay. Good advice for sure. Patrick, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I agree with Dave. By the way, I own a car dealership, and I can tell you there's a lot of really cool new features on cars, especially safety features. But many people are clueless about how to use them, and they can obviously read their owner's manual, which no one does. But if they go on YouTube for any model car, there's going to be an explanation of the safety features that you might have and the best way to use them. But I also want to add one thing I've been teaching my son is to be very aware of the road conditions. It's not simply other drivers and things like rain and snow and ice, of course, but we have some dreadful roads on Long Island. There's a lot of potholes there that can destroy a tire, destroy a wheel, cause you to lose control. There's cracks and crevices that can cause your car to pull sharply to the left or right when you hit them. And it's startling for any driver, but especially a new one.
Absolutely. So that's great advice. And again, you know, when you are out driving with them and practicing, it's important to practice in all road conditions. You know, not only, you know, don't just take them out on a nice day when the pavement is dry. Take them out in the rain. Take them out at night. Things look totally different at night. Take them out, you know, if they'll probably have their license before the winter comes, but, you know, take them out in the snow. Don't let them experience poor road conditions alone for the first time. You want to be there because they may not understand or realize the car will not perform the way it does on dry pavement. So all these things really important that you take them out in a variety of conditions, a variety of road conditions, weather conditions, really, really important. Regular roads, highways, they need to gain experience in all these situations. So that's really important. Thank you. Is there another hand? Karen, Mrs. Perone, yes.
I was just going to suggest, I know that some parents have let me know they get nervous in bad weather or when it starts to get nighttime because you don't have a dual brake. Not all the cars have signs on them. Please, I want all parents to realize that parking lots in bad weather, it's a great way to also begin. Snowy days, really bad raining. You drive them to the parking lot, make sure it's an empty parking lot, and have them practice skidding, braking, steering controls in that weather. Because it's true, it's not always going to be perfect weather conditions every time they're out driving, and they need to know.
Right. Good advice. Good advice. Anyone else? Yes, Deb.
Hi.
Hi.
Something I've noticed on the road is that other drivers are great teachers too on what not to do. We're pretty much guaranteed each time we go out. My son gets beeped at because he's doing the speed limit. People will cut him off. All kinds of bad behaviors go on. So those are great conversation starters for us.
Absolutely.
And also coaching him that it's not his fault. It's not, he needs to follow the rules. He's doing the right thing. Other people doing bad things is on them, and they'll have their consequences when the police see them and give them a ticket, whether it's blowing a light or speeding or what have you.
Right.
The
Okay,
other observation, the other observation I had with teen drivers, and we've been out in the snow, we went to the beach to a slushy parking lot and braked hard, you know, in the snow to try to get the car to skid a little bit so he could feel that fishtail and what have you. But one of the things I noticed about teen drivers is they like to do things one thing at a time and to get it right. But as you drive, everything is concurrent. The light is changing, someone's changing lanes. You need to change a lane or what have you. And so that coordination of effort can be a challenge at times. So the more we get to practice, the better, you know, and smoother the driving experience becomes.
Absolutely. You know, when we talk about, you know, overconfidence, if they pass their road test, they automatically, I think, are overconfident that, hey, I know how to drive and I'm a great driver, you know, and you have to realize that it takes many, many years of experience to become a good driver. So that's, you know, great input and totally true, that, you know, practice. You can't get enough practice. And, you know, again, you're practicing under low risk conditions. Do one lesson at a time. You know, don't do everything at once. Start off in the parking lot. Then go to the residential areas. You know, you would never take a teen out for their first few practice sessions on a main road during rush hour, because it's just going to upset them there. And it's going to upset you probably because you don't have that dual brake, right? So it's going to be unnerving for both of you. And then, you know, something else that's important that just came to my mind is choosing the right parent to teach, I think is really important, because again, you're doing that. I see Matthew smiling. You know, I consider myself a good driver. I've been driving for a long, long time. So I do consider myself a good defensive driver. That doesn't mean things aren't going to happen, but I don't feel that I would be a good teacher because I don't have a lot of patience, quite honestly. So I think it's important to pick the right parent. If there are two parents in the household, pick the one who's a little bit more calm, who will not start screaming and yelling in the car while the teen is driving. If they look, they're going to make mistakes. We know this. They're teenagers and they're inexperienced. They're going to make mistakes. So if they do that, pull over, talk about the mistake, let them know what they did wrong and tell them how to correct it. But while you're pulled over and not driving in a calm manner, and then you get out and you try it again. It's the only way that they're going to learn. So choose the right parent if that's, if that's a possibility. All right, you want this experience for them to be a good one. And if you're the type who's constantly screaming and yelling in the car while they're driving or while you're teaching them or trying to teach them, you're not going to be successful with that attitude. And it's hard. It's hard. Just the thought of being in a car with a new driver with no control, no brake on the passenger side, that's tough. So that, this is a new experience probably, because at least, pre-pandemic, they were getting the formal instruction in a group setting in a car, and then you were kind of just practicing with them and reinforcing it. But now it's kind of all on you guys because we're not doing the car instruction right now. So it's not an easy task, I can tell you that. But, then you have some parents who feel like, I don't really want to take them out, so I won't, or they're not taking them out that often. And if you're not doing the practicing, they're not going to learn. They're not going to improve, and, what does the state say? 50 hours of supervised driving. I know if you're enrolled in driver's ed, it's a little different and it's really only like 24 hours, but that doesn't mean only do that amount of time and stop. All right. Again, even after they get their license, stay involved. Let them drive you places, see what they're doing. Make sure they're not doing anything wrong. You want to be able to correct it. And if you wait 6 or 8 months, that's a habit now, and it's going to be really hard to break. So stay on top of them. Anyone else?
So one of the things I always try to do is, I don't really need to drive him to school in the morning, but I do it on purpose because I have him drive every single morning.
Right.
And I try to pick him up a couple times a week because when we leave school, I have him get on the highway, even if it's just for an exit or two. So I think that's important because if you don't do that, there is a tendency to, at least I found there was a tendency to sort of skip it. It's easy to skip it. We all hate driving with our kids. It's maybe the worst thing in the world because, look, I scream and yell at my kid.
Tell us how you really feel, David.
It's horrible. It's just awful. But I make it a point without fail that every morning, at the very least, he's going to drive that 10-minute drive to school every day, and I'm going to pick him up a couple days a week, and he's going to get on a highway at least twice a week.
I think that's great.
So that, I think if you schedule something in the day that, hey, he's always going to drive this amount of time, I think that makes it a little bit easier. And then along the way, I try to reinforce those rules: defensive driving, not staying in other drivers' blind spots, being mindful of those other things that are happening on the road.
Right.
And I am seeing improvement in him every day. So I'm seeing that little bit of improvement every, a couple times a week. I notice that he's getting a little bit better.
Good. And he's probably feeling more comfortable too.
He is. I can tell because he's actually, I see that his hands loosening on the wheel. So I know you had one slide that before that said, overconfidence, but I think there might be another one you should add there, which would be underconfidence.
Underconfidence.
Underconfidence, scared,
Right.
Driving scared, because you're scared, you're tight, you're tense, you're tight, you don't react well, you freeze.
Right.
So I think there's that other way, but I see that loosening now, and I think it's just that daily repetition, driving, reminding of the rules, and that type of thing. So yeah, that's been my experience so far.
That's great. That's great input, and I appreciate it. Yes, Ed.
Yeah, I also wanted to say that, yeah, practice can be stressful for both the parent and the child, but I agree with you that it's important to do it because on some level, I think that they do need to feel a little bit of stress because they're going to experience that when they're out on the road.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I'll say is that I've noticed with my own daughter that sometimes she can get too much influence by other drivers. And I try to reinforce with her that she needs to decide when it's safe to go, when you come into an intersection, for example. And we drive with the student driver magnet on the back of the vehicle, just so that, you know, you're asking people to be a little bit patient. But there are times when we get to a red light, and even though it is legal to make that right-hand turn on red, if she's not ready to go, and if she's safe yet, she can't be influenced by the guy behind her who's
Yeah.
honking the horn.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, so that's the point I wanted to make, is that you know, the more practice she gets, the more experience she gets, the more she can get to a point where she can decide when it's safe to go. And I try to reinforce with her, always remember that that's your decision and not anybody else on the road.
Right, absolutely. That's great advice. Even like with the red light, if you're the first car stopped at a red light, the minute, or the second, I should say, that light turns green, you always have someone behind you honking their horn. Take a minute, because you might have somebody go through the yellow light on, you know, cross traffic. They're not going to hit the guy who's beeping at you. They're going to hit the car that goes. So not to be intimidated, like you said, do what you feel comfortable with. Take your time. Look left, right, and left again. These things are important. Absolutely. So that's great advice. Wonderful. Anybody else before we wrap it up? Okay. So look, I really, again, I appreciate your time so much for being here. I want you to just keep in mind that the summer months, you know, while there are time for teens to have fun and, you know, maybe have a second job, time to relax, they can be dangerous months for driving. All right. So AAA definitely encourages you, talk to your teens, help them stay on track and make safe decisions while they're behind the wheel. Makes a big, big difference. Okay, so again, I thank you for being here, and hope, you know, they stay safe and they do well, and you continue to stay involved.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
For the presentation. Very
Thank
informative.
you.